Hi, everyone. Welcome to Watchbots Prime. You know who this is, and you know what I'm capable of. It's so hot. I had to make the choice between leaving the fan on and sweltering slightly less, or turning it off and giving you the best possible quality audio. If you can hear the hum of the fan, you could have guessed my choice, but we'll power through. That's what we do. Bachelorette recap. Big week for Hannah and the boys. It's Fantasy Suites week, which means lots of sex and implied sex, which is maybe even better. They're all in Greece, and I imagine they're all holed up somewhere relatively close to each other. But the idea, right, is she meets each of the dudes and she goes on a day date where they do something silly, and then they have a romantic dinner, and then there's a note for an overnight date, and then they spend the night. So let's run through it. First guy up was Peter. And there was a bad story about Peter out on the media this week. Another dude that left his girlfriend for the Bachelorette, which is always a cool and solid maneuver. But their date was hanging out on a boat where they made out like pornographically, like, you know, in the female's choice section. It was very touching and tender, but my God, was it steamy. And they're on this boat and it's moving around. And I found myself wondering, like, okay, we know the cameraman's there and you can assume there's a producer there, like right up in their grills, but like, is there like a boat guy too? And then the camera pans up and there's just this Greek guy. And, he's fiddling with the boat while they're just rolling around on the deck. It's kind of weird. It was confirmed that Peter was the windmill sex guy. So they went to this tiny little windmill, which I guess was supposed to be romantic and cozy, but it just looked cramped. But I'm tall. I don't know. I have no perspective on these things. And they boned down, pretty sure. Peter, in his next morning interview, said they came together, which I think he meant as the double entendre. It came off extra bizarre in this context, but that's life. Moving on, Tyler, who's the hunk with a heart of gold. And Shaylin doesn't think he's a hunk, but Shaylin also willingly chose to marry me, which shows that her barometer is not even close. And Hannah didn't want to get physical with Tyler. She thought it was all physical, which they had a oily massage. So they just talked. They chatted. I'm guessing she's not into this guy. Third up on the list was Jed, who is the guitar playing guy, also who had a girlfriend when he went on the show. Boo this man. He has a big head. So Reddit, in a very funny way, calls him Head. And yes, I know it's not funny, but it makes me giggle, and fuck you. So their date was, I don't know, they went to a party. There were cats, I think. Anyway, they got into a fight, but then they boned too. So, all right. And then the main event. So Luke. And Luke is the hyper Christian guy that has pretty much been seen as the villain of the season. And they go on their date and Hannah's like making out with him and talking about how she's falling in love with him. And then at dinner, he asks her if she's had sex with any of the other guys and basically says that if she had, he would be out, he'd be leaving. And then she reacts badly to that, as one would. And he backtracks and she basically eviscerates this dude and saying he doesn't have the right. He doesn't own her. And I agree with all that. It's not that he has his own views on sex after meeting God in the shower or whatever. It's more that he's just so like condescending and prescriptive about it. And that's something I don't like. So she sends him away. And right before he leaves, he asks her if he can pray over her, which is something I just love. A real clueless power move right there. And there ain't a thing wrong with that. So we're almost to the end of the season. The preview shows Luke coming back, like barging into the rose ceremony. And that should be a hoot. And then there's a men tell all, and then we hit the finale. So we're getting there. What am I going to do with my 2 hours a week after this ends? I don't know, honestly. It's a little frightening. I'll start collecting coins or something. I don't fucking know. I should talk too about this new Rocko's Modern Life that has been announced for Netflix coming in August. It looks bad. Rocko's Modern Life is a show that I think everybody really remembers fondly, and that's okay. But if you go back and rewatch it, it's real bad. It's like Ren and Stimpy level bad. And will we watch it on this show? Probably. But we can't just leave well enough alone, you know, in America and our culture. The only two reboots or reimaginings or revivals that didn't go bad were as follows. Number one, the 12-hour long Peter Jackson King Kong movie. Truly, 'twas beauty that killed the beast. And number two was the American Gladiators that Hulk Hogan hosted, which was notable only because they immediately ran out of ideas. And then I think had like a 65-year-old woman doing gladiators against a 12-year-old or something weird. Maybe not even legal these days, but who knows? It was amazing. But, you know, like between Rocko's Modern Life, there's this new 90210 coming out, which looks horrific. Just stop. We just have to stop. But speaking of Beverly Hills, and I'm clapping myself on the back, this is a good segue. That brings us to this week. Bring yourself back to the year 1987. The world is a violent, some would say shockingly violent place. The airwaves for the children were being filled with G.I. Joe and Transformers, and parents said, couldn't there be a kindler, gentler way? Well, there was. Meet the Beverly Hills Teens. This show was touted as a nonviolent alternative for kids, and it was. It's definitely not as violent as G.I. Joe, but it's hypersexual and insane, and it may be the best thing that we've watched yet for this show. There's a fuckbot, there's crazy dancing, there's seizure-inducing lights. It is truly, truly an experience. The episode that we watched is more or less the plot of Weird Science, but you're not watching this for the plot. You're watching this for everything else. Give it a check. A watch? What am I talking about? It's okay. It's okay. It's late. It's hot. I'm sweaty. I'm going to finish this out. But that'll be next week when 3 middle-ish class folks talk about the upper class and look at them with envy. Looking forward to it. I think that will finish us out for this week. This is Ben signing off, and I wish you all caviar dreams and champagne nightmares. Bye.